Welcome everyone to my last short update for 2022. John Kenneth Galbraith, an irreverent economist, and before you guffaw, yes, there is such a thing, is famously quoted as saying, "The only function of economic forecasting is to make astrology look respectable." That sounds like a hypothesis to me, and while I might have to take some liberties with the scientific method, that means it's something I can test. To do so, I took a light-hearted look at the predictions from 5 big bank economists and compared them with the forecast from an astrologer published in the New Zealand Herald. The official cash rate is the interest rate that the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, Te Pūtea Mātua, sets for banks in New Zealand. It influences all other interest rates in the country. Setting interest rates is the key task that a bank undertakes. It is the biggest determinant of their profit. By deduction, bank economists must be really good at setting interest rates. The bank's collective profits depend on it. So, how did they go? The average of all predictions was 2.05%, an increase of 1.3%. The OCR actually finished the year at 4.25%, an increase of 3.5%. All of the economists were wrong, on average, by 1.8%. Not a very good start. What about inflation? The average prediction was 3.72%, which is quite a large decrease from the 5.9% that inflation was at the end of 2021. None of the 5 predicted an increase, and all of them were wrong, some really wrong, by the end of 2022. 0 for 2, I'm afraid. A confession. It is impossible to compare like with like here. This means that I had to assign a prediction error to the astrologer's statements, which is, of course, somewhat arbitrary. My star sign is Virgo, and before any of you at home say that explains a lot, no, it doesn't. That's what I've used to test the astrologer's predictions. The first prediction was that January would see me ditching draining people, but it wouldn't be easy. I returned to work in January, but the kids didn't go back to school until February. The second prediction was that I will be rewarded with sweeter connections as the year wraps up. We finish work on 22 December, which means sweeter connections in terms of family time, but that also includes the kids. So, to be consistent, I have to sign a prediction error. Let's say 50%. So, how did they score? The economists were 0 for 2, and the astrologist got 1 correct. As I mentioned earlier, while my test doesn't satisfy the scientific method, it does illustrate how hard predicting can be. The purpose of this update is not to tell you that economists are useless. They're not. They're interesting, informative, entertaining, and I usually find them much more useful than astrologists. The purpose of this update is to remind you that predicting is very difficult. The chief economists from 5 New Zealand banks couldn't get it right. In fact, they were beaten by 1 astrologist. Any investment strategy that relies on prediction is likely to rely on poor information. A better investment strategy is one that doesn't rely on predictions, that will probably prove to be wrong. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I look forward to updating you again in 2023.